in the vibrant, bustling heart of Dearborn, Michigan, where the aroma of freshly baked flatbreads mingled with the hum of community life, a story unfolded that would leave an indelible mark on those who heard it. Zayn Malik, a young Muslim man of just 22, carried a burden far heavier than his years. His life was a tapestry of sacrifice, woven with threads of duty and love for his family. His mother, Khadijah, battled late-stage cancer, her frail form a shadow of the vibrant woman she once was. His younger sister, Alia, a bright-eyed 17-year-old, dreamed of becoming a doctor, her ambitions tethered to the precarious finances of their household. 3 years prior, their father had perished in a tragic workplace accident, leaving Zayn as the sole provider. By day, he drove for Uber, navigating the crowded streets. By night, he stocked shelves at a halal grocery store, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on his weary face. In stolen moments, he pursued online community college courses, his eyes straining against the dim glow of a second-hand laptop. Yet, the weight of it all was crushing him. His once youthful features were now pale, his eyes sunken with exhaustion, and his hands trembled as he counted the last crumpled dollars in his pocket. Debt collectors hounded him relentlessly, their calls a constant reminder of his mother's costly medications and Alia's overdue school fees. For Zayn, the world had become a suffocating prison of responsibilities. One overcast afternoon, as a soft drizzle coated the streets of Dearborn, Zayn slipped into a modest Pakistani-owned tea shop, a local gem known for its $1 chai. The air inside was warm, infused with the sweet scent of cardamom and cloves. As he fumbled through his worn wallet, counting coins to pay for his steaming cup, he felt an inexplicable weight, a gaze fixed upon him. Raising his eyes, he met the stare of a woman seated across the room. She wore a luxurious black abaya that shimmered faintly under the shop's soft lighting, her hijab adorned with a glimmering diamond pin that caught the eye like a star in the night sky. Her posture was regal, exuding an air of quiet authority, but her eyes held a depth that seemed to pierce through Zayn's guarded exterior, as if she could see the burdens etched into his soul. "Are you Zayn Malik?" she asked, her voice low, composed, and tinged with a warmth that disarmed him. Zayn blinked, confusion knitting his brow. "Yes, I am," he replied hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. She nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering. "I know what you're going through." His heart skipped a beat, a mix of curiosity and unease swirling within him. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "My name is Safia Aurman," she said, her tone steady yet inviting. "I'm a businesswoman. I lost my husband many years ago. I've traveled the world, seen its highs and lows, and now I see the sadness in your eyes, the struggle, the pressure, the quiet despair. You're worried about your mother's health, your sister's future, and the life slipping through your fingers. But what if I told you I could change all of that?" Zayn's brow furrowed deeper, his mind racing to make sense of her words. "I'm not following," he admitted, gripping his chai cup tightly. Safia's lips curved into a gentle, knowing smile. "Marry me." The words hung in the air like a sudden gust of wind. Zayn let out an awkward laugh, assuming it was a jest. Safia, who appeared to be at least 70, carried herself with a vitality that belied her age. Her skin, though marked by time, glowed with an almost ethereal health, and her presence was magnetic, commanding the room without effort. "I'm not joking," she continued, her voice steady. "Marry me, and I will pay off all your debts. I'll ensure your mother receives the best medical treatment available. I'll fund your sister's education, all the way through medical school. You'll be free. No more grueling night shifts, no more relentless stress. All I ask in return is that you agree to my conditions." Zayn stared at her, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief. "This is insane," he stammered. "Why would you do that? Why me?" Safia's eyes softened, a flicker of something unspoken passing through them. "Because, long ago I lost everything," she said quietly. "Now I have everything, wealth, influence, comfort, everything except someone to share it with. Think about it, Zayn. You don't need to love me. I won't encroach on your freedom. You'll have your own space, your own life. But marry me, and everything changes for you and your family." Zayn left the tea shop in a daze, Safia's words echoing in his mind like a haunting melody. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. The sight of his mother's frail form, weakened by illness and the lack of proper medication, tore at his heart. The shame of telling Alia she might have to abandon her dreams of medical school gnawed at him. The weight of it all became unbearable. One evening, as the sun dipped below the Dearborn skyline, painting the horizon in hues of amber and crimson, Zayn found himself standing outside Safia's sprawling mansion. Its grandeur loomed before him, a testament to a world he could scarcely imagine. Steeling himself, he knocked on the ornate door. "I accept," he said, his voice firm but trembling with the gravity of his decision. Within a week, the arrangements were complete. A quiet Nika ceremony took place, witnessed by a handful of community members who whispered among themselves about the unlikely union. Zayn Malik, the struggling young man from Dearborn, was now married to Safia Al-Rahman, the wealthiest woman in the region. Her mansion was a vision of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light across marble floors, Persian rugs cushioned every step, and golden railings gleamed under the glow of intricate sconces. Yet, amidst this splendor, Zayn felt an unsettling emptiness, a stillness that prickled his skin. The household staff moved like silent specters, their eyes averted. Everyone, from longtime aides to distant relatives, deferred to Safia with a reverence that bordered on fear. But something was amiss, a subtle discord beneath the polished surface. The second floor of the mansion housed a massive, intricately carved door, locked and guarded around the clock. No one would speak of it, their silence fueling Zayn's curiosity. He was treated with utmost care, given his own wing, outfitted with fine clothes, and granted access to anything he desired. Yet, an invisible barrier stood between him and Safia. She dined with him each evening, her presence warm yet distant, her questions about his family gentle but never probing. She smiled graciously, never complained, and carried herself with an elegance that captivated him. But the locked door gnawed at his thoughts. It seemed to whisper to him each time he passed, its presence a riddle wrapped in enigma. One night, unable to resist, Zayn paused before the door, his hand brushing the cold brass handle. A guard materialized instantly, his tone polite but firm. "Sir, this area is restricted." "Why?" Zayn asked, his voice edged with frustration, but the guard offered no answer, his expression unreadable. Then, late one night, as the faint call to far prayer drifted from a nearby mosque, Zayn heard something, a murmur of voices behind the forbidden door. His heart raced as he pressed his ear closer, catching the unmistakable cadence of Safia's voice, low and deliberate, conversing with another woman. The words were indistinct, but the tone sent a chill down his spine. Questions began to haunt him, each one sharper than the last. Who was Safia Al-Rahman, truly? What lay behind that locked door? And why had she chosen him? In that moment, Zayn realized that marrying Safia might have saved his family, lifting them from the brink of despair. His mother's health was improving, thanks to a renowned Muslim oncologist flown in from Chicago. Alia's tuition was paid, her dreams reignited with a new laptop and a dedicated study space. The family praised Allah for this miracle. Yet, for Zayn, the mansion's opulence felt like a gilded cage. Safia remained kind, composed, and enigmatic, retreating each night to pray alone near the locked door, a ritual that set her apart from the household's communal worship. The mystery deepened, and Zayn's unease grew. He had traded one burden for another, and the truth behind that door might reveal a reality he was never meant to uncover. The night after hearing those muffled voices, sleep eluded Zayn. He lay in his lavish bed, surrounded by gold-trimmed walls and silken curtains that swayed gently in the night breeze. The comfort of the mansion did little to quiet the storm brewing within him. His family's gratitude was palpable, their lives transformed by Safia's generosity. Yet, Zayn's heart was restless. tethered to the enigma of his new wife and the secrets she guarded. The locked door loomed in his mind, its silence louder than any words, promising answers that might unravel everything he thought he knew. Zayn Malik, now ensconced in the opulent yet enigmatic mansion of Safia Aurman, felt like a prince trapped in a gilded cage. The wealth surrounding him, marble floors, cascading chandeliers, and silken drapes, offered every comfort, yet it kept him at arm's length from something essential: the truth. His mother's health was improving, her frail form gaining strength under the care of a renowned oncologist. His sister, Alia, was thriving, her medical school dreams secured with tuition paid and a gleaming new laptop. Yet, Zayn's heart was restless, tethered to the mystery of the massive locked door on the second floor, a silent sentinel that seemed to guard Safia's deepest secrets. One tranquil evening, as twilight painted the Dearborn sky in hues of amber and violet, Zayn sat in the mansion's lush courtyard, the air heavy with the scent of blooming jasmine. He flipped through an old, leather-bound Quran Safia had gifted him, its pages worn yet comforting, a tether to his faith amidst the uncertainty. His thoughts churned, replaying the muffled voices he'd heard behind the forbidden door. Mira, a soft-spoken 19-year-old who served as Safia's personal attendant, approached with a tray of steaming tea. Unlike the other servants, who moved like shadows, Mira spoke to Zayn with a quiet warmth that put him at ease. "Is everything all right, sir?" she asked, her voice gentle as she set the tray down. Zayn looked up, his dark eyes searching her face. "Mira, tell me honestly, what's behind that locked door upstairs?" Her expression stiffened, her gaze dropping to the cobblestone path beneath her feet. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't know," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "You do," Zayn pressed softly, leaning forward. "I can see it in your eyes." Mira hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her apron. "Please don't ask," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I could lose everything." Zayn nodded, respecting her fear, but her words only fueled his growing obsession. Later that night, in the dimly lit kitchen where the hum of the refrigerator was the only sound, he approached her again. The scent of cardamom lingered from the evening's meal. "Mira," he said, his tone earnest but low, "if Safia permits, will you tell me when she's alone and available to talk?" Mira's eyes darted toward the doorway, ensuring they were alone. After a long pause, she nodded. "If she says yes, I'll come to you," she whispered. 2 nights later, as the mansion settled into its eerie midnight silence, Mira appeared at Zayn's door, her silhouette framed by the faint glow of a hallway sconce. "She's waiting in her chamber," she said softly. "She wants to see you." Zayn's pulse quickened, a mix of anticipation and dread coursing through him. He washed his face, the cold water grounding him, and dressed in a dark blue thobe that flowed like a river over his frame. He navigated the grand hallway, its walls lined with dim sconces and portraits of stern-faced ancestors whose hollow eyes seemed to follow him. At Safia's door, he knocked, his heart pounding like a drum. "Come in, Zayn," came her calm, melodic voice from within. He stepped inside and paused, struck by the room's ethereal beauty. Tall vases overflowed with roses, their divine fragrance mingling with the musk of aged wood. Delicate fabrics draped over arched windows, filtering the moonlight into soft, silver patterns. In the center, seated on an ornate chair with the grace of royalty, was Safia. Despite her 70 years, her eyes sparkled with a youthful intensity, her presence magnetic. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I had to," Zayn replied, his voice low, tinged with urgency. "There's too much I don't understand." Safia gestured to a cushioned seat across from her. "Sit," she said gently. He complied, his body tense, his eyes locked on hers. "You're not here because of your mother or sister," she continued, her tone soft but piercing. "You're here because of that door." Zayn's heart thudded. "Yes," he admitted. "It haunts me." Safia rose slowly, her movements deliberate, and crossed to a lacquered cabinet. She retrieved an old photograph and handed it to him. Zane's breath caught as he studied it. The image showed a man who could have been his mirror, only older, dressed in 1980s attire, high-waisted jeans and a faded jacket, standing beside a younger Safia, her smile radiant. "That's your father," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Samuel Malik." Zane's world tilted. "What?" he gasped, his fingers tightening around the photograph. "We met long before he married your mother," Safia continued, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. "He was the first man I ever loved. After my husband died, Samuel was kind to me, a beacon in my grief. But I misunderstood his kindness. I believed he loved me, too. When I proposed marriage, he laughed, called it ridiculous, said I was nothing more than a rich distraction." Her voice tightened, and she turned her face away, her fingers brushing the edge of a rose petal. "That rejection shattered me. I buried the shame, the pain, until I saw you, Zane. You look exactly like him." Zane rose, his voice shaking. "So, this marriage, was it revenge?" "No," Safia said, turning back to face him, her eyes glistening. "It began that way, but it didn't stay that way." She took a step closer, her presence both commanding and vulnerable. "I wanted you to suffer as I had, to feel trapped, controlled, used. But then you showed me kindness. You spoke gently, never raised your voice, respected me even when I didn't deserve it. I didn't expect to fall in love with you." Zane stepped back, his emotions a tangled storm. "This is madness," he whispered, his voice cracking. Safia crossed the room, placing a hand over her heart. "I know it sounds that way, but the heart is not logical, Zane, and neither is pain." A heavy silence fell between them, sacred and suffocating. Zane looked away, his gaze settling on the flickering flame of a nearby candle. "So, what's behind that door?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Safia exhaled, her shoulders softening. "The truth. And you're ready now." She reached into a drawer and handed him a brass key, its weight cold and heavy in his palm. "Tomorrow night, after everyone sleeps, come alone. Bring no questions, no accusations, only your heart." Zane returned to his room, the key a burning presence in his hand. Sleep eluded him, his mind reeling from Safia's revelation. The marriage, the mansion, her calm demeanor, it had all been a carefully veiled act, rooted in a decades-old wound. Yet, something in her eyes felt painfully genuine, a raw vulnerability that disarmed him. He stared at the key, its intricate engravings catching the moonlight. It was not just a key to a door, but a gateway to a truth that could either burn or heal. The following night, after the mansion fell into its familiar, eerie silence, Zane stood before the forbidden door on the second floor. The hallway was dimly lit, the distant ticking of an old wall clock echoing like a heartbeat. His breath was slow, deliberate, as he inserted the key. Click. The heavy brass lock released with a finality that sent a chill through his spine. He pushed open the thick door, its creak resonating like a groaning soul. Inside, the room was cloaked in age and memory, bathed in soft, golden light. Dust motes floated like spirits caught in limbo, and the air carried the faint scent of rose water and old paper. Zane stepped inside, his footsteps muffled by a faded Persian rug. A tall, ornate wooden cabinet stood against the far wall, its carvings intricate and ancient. A single armchair, draped in a worn prayer shawl, sat before it, as if waiting for a confession. His eyes were drawn to a table in the center, atop which rested a thick, leather-bound folder. He opened it, his hands trembling. Inside were dozens of photographs, Safia in her youth, radiant at galas, exploring distant cities, her smile a beacon of joy. But among them were images of his father, Samuel Malik. In one, they sat on a picnic blanket in a sun-dappled park, their laughter frozen in time. In another, Samuel held Safia's hand, their eyes locked in a moment of intimacy. Zane's jaw clenched, his heart a battlefield of betrayal and curiosity. Beneath the photographs were letters, handwritten and yellowed, dated over 30 years ago. He lifted one, his breath shallow, and read, "Dear Samuel, I waited for you at the train station again. Why didn't you come? You said you loved me. Was it all a lie? I gave up everything for you. I can't bear this silence." The words struck like a blade. Zayn dropped the letter, his chest tight. A voice broke the silence. "I used to write to him every week." Zayn spun around to find Safia at the threshold, her long, flowing robe shimmering in the dim light. Her expression was calm, but her voice was fragile, like glass about to shatter. He never wrote back. Not once. Zayn's heart pounded louder than his words. "Why did you keep this room locked?" "Because it was the part of me that never healed," she said, stepping closer, her eyes glistening. "And I didn't want anyone to see it." He stared at her, his voice raw. "Why marry me then? Why trap me in this?" "At first, it was punishment," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted his son to know what it meant to be powerless, to have no choice. But I underestimated you, Zayn. You weren't your father. You were better." She paused, her gaze softening. "And you made me love again." Zayn backed away, his emotions warring within him. Anger, confusion, pity. "This isn't love, Safia," he said, his voice trembling. "This is manipulation, guilt, obsession." "No," she replied softly, her eyes pleading. "It became love when I realized I didn't want to control you. I just wanted you to see me." Zayn turned toward the cabinet, his gaze catching on a document tucked among the letters. It was a legal will, dated just a month ago, stating that upon Safia's death, her entire estate would pass to Zayn Malik. He stared at the paper, then at her. "You're giving me everything?" "Yes," she nodded, her voice steady. "Not because I have to, but because I trust you. And because you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope." Tears welled in Zayn's eyes, a torrent of sorrow, guilt, and anger converging. "I don't know what to do with all this," he whispered, his voice breaking. Safia offered a faint, bittersweet smile. "Just stay for tonight. That's all I ask." Zayn didn't respond, his heart heavy with inherited pain. They spoke for hours that night, not as wife and husband, nor as victim and offender, but as two souls, scarred and searching, laying bare their truths. The room, once a vault of secrets, became a sanctuary of shared vulnerability, where pain and hope intertwined under the golden glow of a single lamp. By dawn, a fragile peace had settled over Zayn Malik and Safia Al-Rahman, their night of shared truths weaving a delicate thread of understanding between them. The opulent mansion in Dearborn, Michigan, once heavy with secrets, seemed to exhale, its walls softened by the light of a new day. But fate, ever unpredictable, had one final turn in store. Weeks later, Safia fell gravely ill, her strength sapped by heart failure. The doctors, their voices heavy with clinical detachment, attributed it to her age. "She's lived a full life," they said, but their words felt hollow to Zayn. He sat by her bedside, the room filled with the soft cadence of the Quran he read aloud, his voice a steady anchor in the quiet. Safia, frail yet serene, looked at him with eyes that held a lifetime of stories. In her final breath, she whispered, "Thank you, Zayn, for making me feel young again, even if just for a while." A gentle smile graced her lips as she passed, leaving the room cloaked in a sacred stillness. At her janazah, held under the soft spring light filtering through the mosque's stained-glass windows, Zayn stood quietly among mourners. The community praised Safia's charity, her vast business empire, and her unyielding resilience, their voices weaving a tapestry of admiration. Yet, only Zayn knew the full story, the pain, the revenge, the redemption that had unfolded behind the mansion's gilded doors. As the crowd dispersed, he stepped into the cool breeze, his heart heavy yet unburdened. Gazing into the horizon, he whispered into the wind, "I forgive you, Safia. Forgive me, too." The words felt like a release, a quiet dua carried to the heavens. But this was not the end. From the shadows of the mansion, another figure emerged into the light. Mira, the 19-year-old orphan who had served Safia with unwavering loyalty, had been a quiet presence in Zayn's most tumultuous days. Her gentle care, bringing him tea, organizing his books, reminding him to eat, had been a soft undercurrent of kindness. Now, as the mansion's heavy silence lifted, her warm, almond-shaped eyes followed Zayn, not with desire or manipulation, but with a devotion as pure as morning dew. Slowly, like a flower blooming at the edge of winter, a new story began to unfold. Months passed, and the mansion, once a shrine to Safia's buried pain, transformed into a sanctuary of life. The whispers of old regrets, the haunting silence behind locked doors, and the weight of secrets pressed into velvet walls were gone. In their place, sunlight streamed through open windows, gentle music filled the air, and laughter echoed like spring after a brutal winter. Zayn, now the legal owner of Safia's sprawling estate, complete with multiple properties and half a dozen thriving businesses, had inherited a fortune that could have defined him. Yet he chose a different path. He didn't flaunt his wealth or revel in its power. Instead, he wielded it as a shield to protect his mother, Khadija, whose health continued to improve, her laughter now a melody in the garden. He built a future for his sister, Alia, now in her third year of medical school, her dreams of becoming a doctor brighter than ever. The mansion, once a cold monument, became a true home, pulsating with warmth and purpose. In this new chapter, Mira stepped quietly into the center of Zayn's world. Raised by the household after losing her parents, she had been Safia's closest confidant, a silent pillar of strength. Yet, it was only after Safia's passing that Zayn truly saw her, not as a servant, but as a soul whose kindness had anchored him. Their connection began subtly, like the first notes of a song. Mira brought him tea each morning, her voice soft as she asked if he'd slept well. She remembered his preference for organizing books by topic, her hands deft and thoughtful. When he forgot to eat, lost in the responsibilities of his new role, she'd leave a plate of warm naan and curry by his desk, her care unspoken but profound. One crisp afternoon, Zayn found her in the mansion's rose garden, her slender fingers coaxing life into a dying jasmine vine, its fragrance faint but hopeful. "You really care about this place, don't you?" he asked, his voice carrying a quiet admiration. Mira looked up, her smile as warm as the sunlight filtering through the leaves. "It was the only home I ever knew," she replied softly, brushing soil from her hands. Zayn paused, his gaze lingering on her. "You never seemed afraid of Safia, even when everyone else bowed around her." "She gave me shelter," Mira said, her voice steady but tender. "But it was you who gave this place peace." Her words settled into his heart, a seed taking root. Zayn began seeking her out, their conversations growing longer, deeper. He asked about her dreams, learning she yearned to become a teacher, a passion paused by years of servitude. Without hesitation, he made a quiet decision to support her, to help her become whoever she wanted to be, no expectations, no strings. But as weeks turned to months, and spring painted Dearborn skies with vibrant hues, something deeper blossomed. Their shared moments, discussing books, tending the garden, or simply sitting in companionable silence, wove a bond that felt like home. One night, after tearaway prayer at the local mosque, Zayn and Mira walked together under a canopy of stars, the moonlight casting a silver glow on the quiet streets. The air was cool, scented with blooming lilacs. "I've been thinking," Zayn said, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "You've been with me through everything, Safia, the mansion, the pain. You never asked for anything." Mira looked down, her cheeks flushed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted anything except to see you happy." Zayn stopped walking, his heart swelling. "Then would it make you happy if I asked you to be part of my life?" Her eyes widened, glistening with unshed tears. "You mean?" He nodded slowly, his gaze unwavering. "Not out of pity, not to replace anyone, but because when I look at you, I feel calm. I feel home." Tears spilled down Mira's cheeks as she whispered, "Yes." Their marriage was sealed in a modest nikah ceremony at the mosque, a simple gathering of friends and family bathed in the warmth of sincerity. No gold-plated invitations, no fanfare, just a quiet dua offered for the soul of Safia Awarman, whose presence lingered like a bittersweet melody. Zayn had once believed he was cursed, trapped in a loveless deal, a pawn in an old woman's revenge. But he hadn't realized that sometimes Allah weaves the strangest roads to lead us to where we're meant to be. Now, Zayn was a husband, a caretaker, and soon a father, as Mira was pregnant with their first child. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was real, grounded in love and mutual respect. The mansion, once a vault of grief, now echoed with lullabies and nursery rhymes. Khadija spent her evenings in the garden, her laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Alia, thriving in medical school, returned home every weekend, her presence a spark of joy in their growing family. In the East Wing, where Safia had once guarded her pain, Zayn built a library named the Awarman Room of Forgiveness. It housed Safia's old books, her journals, and the letters she never sent, each page a testament to her journey. Above the entrance, carved into stone, was a quote: "Love does not always arrive the way we expect, but when it does, it makes everything before it worth surviving." And so ends the story of Zayn Malik, a young man who married a 70-year-old woman, whose deal became a destiny, and whose pain was transformed into a legacy of love and forgiveness. From a gilded cage to a home filled with light, his journey was a reminder that even the most unlikely paths can lead to redemption. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribe for more.